Welcome to the Beauty in Battle podcast, where we talk about winning in marriage by waging a war. I'm Jason Benham. I've got my girlfriend / wife, Tori Benham, with me, and we are here to talk to you about how Satan tries to get you to fight face to face with your spouse, but God designed you to fight shoulder to shoulder against Satan so that you can win in your marriage. Fighting together draws you together. We cannot wait to jump in. So here we go. Okay, so today we're talking about the science of relationship. Now, we did an 8-part series on the neuroscience of relationship and how science has shown us now the power of our brains and the effect of relationships on our brains. But what Tori and I want to look at today, specifically Tori, is she's been researching this really cool study done by Harvard. Mm-hmm. It's called the Harvard Study of Adult Development, and it's an 85-year-old study. It's the longest lasting research project done on the same people group ever. At least it's believed to be. So long as they believe, so long as they know. Yeah, and it basically has looked at a people group over 85 years to find out one simple thing: what makes them healthy. And so they observe their health, their longevity, like everything. Everything is on the table, from what they're eating to their exercise routine to everything. You know, their meditation, their religious affiliation, all of it. And over 85 years, they've discovered one thing that has helped more than anything in terms of becoming a healthy adult and having longevity in your life. And I'm not going to tell you what that is yet, because Tori first wants to introduce a song, one that we really love.
Okay, we've talked about how much we love Father of the Bride, 1 and 2.
Oh, yeah.
There's a debate in our home which one's the better one. I'm team Father of the Bride 1.
Yeah,
what
one,
are you?
I think you got to stick with 1.
I think so too. Lundy's team 2.
It's one of the rare movies though where the sequel is good
actually,
as the beginning. Yeah, it's like Home Alone 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those are pretty good.
Yeah, and so this song comes from Father of the Bride 2, and it's a song by Steve Tyrell, "Give Me the Simple Life." Yeah. I think it goes along really well with what we're talking about today too.
It's perfect. Have you ever eaten pheasant?
Just serve me tomatoes and mashed potatoes. Give me the simple life.
It's a great song. I love that.
Such a good song. Give me the simple life.
Because when you think about relationship, if you get all complicated and you wrap ambition, into your life, and it's like, I want to conquer the world. Yeah. I want to go out there and save the world. I want to do all these great things. Well, chances are you're probably going to leave your key relationships in the dust.
Yeah.
But if you do think, I want the simple life.
Yeah.
If God chooses to use me in some great way in terms of the number of people that are affected by my influence, then great. But you know what? What I really want is the simple life.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's the way to think about relationship.
Yeah, I totally agree. My dad, he always says, keep the main thing the main thing. That's like something you'll hear him say over and over again. He just did a message on it recently at church, and it's so true. And for the message that he gave was just all about keeping relationships intact. That's the most important thing. You've got your relationship with God and your relationship with your family is the most important thing. And it's not complicated. It's actually pretty simple, but it gets tricky sometimes, right?
It's great because we have lunch at Tori's parents' house probably 2 or 3 Sundays a month. Mm-hmm. So we're always going over there, and the whole family, all extended family, everybody's invited. And Tori, a couple years ago, found this great plaque that they have up right over where their dinner table is, where everybody eats, and it says, "We were together. I forget the rest."
Yeah, it's so good.
That's the
because
simple
there's
life.
Absolute chaos sometimes. It's not like this perfect family where everyone just gets along and everything's easy. But we were together. I forget the rest.
Who cares about the rest?
Yeah, we keep coming back to it.
I mean, how many times have you heard the dude who accomplishes something great in business or even in sport or whatever? Or let's just take Tom Brady, for example, where here's a guy who's got a wife and kids, and he leaves them to go to the NFL and do the stuff in the NFL. And he even was caught on camera and with audio where he was losing, I think, to the Cleveland Browns or something. And he's like, I didn't give up my wife and kids so we could lose to the effing Cleveland Browns. Wow. And it's like, wow, you got to be kidding me. That's a dude who has totally lost his rocker, man. He is off his rocker. And but you elevate relationships, and then you'll have fulfillment. Like Tom Brady, there's no way he can experience true and total fulfillment in his life without core relationships that are intact and healthy. Yeah,
it's so true. So I stumbled upon this study, and it just completely fascinated me. Yeah, it's called the Harvard Study of Adult Development. It's a research project that started in 1938, and it's ongoing.
Wow, 1938.
1938.
And it's still open.
Yep. So they are on the third, or I think it's the fourth and fifth president of this study. Wow. Or director, rather. And it started with 724 men. Yeah. From half of them were 19-year-old boys from Harvard, and then the other half were 12 and up boys from Boston, from all different walks of life. Okay. And they followed these boys and their spouses and their children. Yeah. So now it's grown to a huge number of people for the past 85 years.
And they're just trying to figure out what makes them healthy, what makes them live long.
Yeah. They're just watching them, asking them questions, and seeing who lives the longest, seeing who's the healthiest, who are the happiest. This is so interesting. So after studying this people group for over 85 years, they're going over all the notes, and kind of what they're coming to the conclusion of is that they believe that relationships are at the top tier of health and longevity, above food and exercise.
Wow, that's great.
So as they study these people group, it's their relationships and the health of their relationships that is giving them life.
So this
longer life, longer longevity.
This is the study of adult development, talking about what makes people healthy and allows you to live the longest. And they came up with the conclusion, and it's still open. It's still ongoing over 85 years.
That at the top tier.
The one thing that's at the top is healthy relationships that makes you a healthy person. Yeah. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, like all of it. If your relationships are intact, obviously you can still struggle physically in some other areas, but if your relationships are fully intact, and there's that bilateral communication where you feel loved and you're giving love, that is the number one key.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
So interesting. And what they are finding is that that loneliness increases our risk of death in comparable ways as smoking and obesity. Just think about that. Wow. Loneliness increases our risk of death in comparable ways to smoking and obesity. Wow. And I just think that's so eye-opening to so many people. You know, you when you can actually see that there is that direct effect of loneliness. In the UK now, there's this ministry of loneliness that they've taken up, and they're starting to really, because they're beginning to see like, wow, the risks are really, really high, and we need to do something about it. And so there's actually like proactive ministries out there to help people who are struggling with loneliness, because they're recognizing how much it's affecting their health. And
that's crazy that it's an actual governmental agency.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
In England.
Just like there was this huge push to, for smoking back in the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
There's this huge push for loneliness.
And what's crazy is that's amidst more connection than we've ever had in terms of technology. Yeah. But so, and what we're seeing with social media and online interaction is there's way more interaction, but less connection. Right. So you feel as though you're connected, but you're not. Yeah. You're just interacting with people, but you're not really connecting with people. Yes. And you just can't connect with people through social media in terms of having a deep emotional connection. It's got to be, you've got to be physically present. Yeah, exactly. And they are making that tie that there really is an issue with social media, that people are looking online to feel connected and they're not finding it. It's not working. And which only exacerbates the loneliness. Because if you're already lonely and then you go to a place that says, hey, essentially, in social media, you won't be lonely anymore. Right. If you come here and join this group or whatever. And then your expectation is high.
Yes.
But disappointment is the gap between expectation and reality.
Yeah.
So you go on to social media thinking that you're connecting with people, when in reality you're going the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And you've got this growing disappointment because of the expectation, and it just makes it even worse.
Exactly. One of the quotes they mentioned was, you can't compare someone's outside with your insides. And so there's just this huge level of comparison happening, that you're looking online and you can't help but compare. Oh, I haven't done anything special with my spouse this week, or in another relationship, with people's kids. And you're like, oh my goodness, we don't have that type of relationship, but you're comparing something outward with something inward. That's right. And you can never do that. It's not fair. It's not a fair comparison.
It's so true, because when you're looking at social media, I mean, how many of us have been in the middle of a hard work day and you happen to take a break and jump on social media and see something, and then your buddy or your friend is, in Greece or, somewhere in Italy having the time of their life. And then you're like, oh crap, like, geez, I wish I were there. Well, you wouldn't have had that feeling had you not gone on social media at that point,
Yeah, exactly.
And who knows, all the work that they had to do to get to that point. And you'll have your time, but it's that subconscious comparison.
Yeah.
It's just wrecking people.
Yeah.
When they get on social media, and it's destroying relationships.
Yeah. Another point that they brought up, and I thought it was a really good one, is that you need to be mindful that you're actively connecting and not passively consuming. So if you're online and you're just passively consuming information and consuming what everybody's doing, but you're not actively connecting, then you probably shouldn't be online.
Huh. That makes sense.
Yeah. And I remember Allie did a research project on this in school last year. And she was talking about how important it is, if you're going to be on, then connect with people, actually respond and let them respond to you. Otherwise, just don't be online. Like otherwise, just have real connection with people in real time. Right.
Yeah.
But if you're online and you're not going back and forth and having a connection, then that's not helpful to you.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because there is a level of connection that you can have online. Of course, it's not the deepest connection, but you can, and it's really good. And what I love about social media is that it's opened up dialogue where people can have conversations. Now, unfortunately, you got the thought mafia out there that's getting rid of people who represent, biblical values, but still, to be able to reach out to somebody and have a conversation, that can ultimately lead to some deeper connection. That's good.
Yeah. So it's just good to be mindful to not be an active consumer.
Yeah, that's good. Now, what's the, you had mentioned something earlier about, that there were two things that they said that you needed when it came to relationship, the healthiest relationships.
Well, they talk about a man in the book. Oh, actually, there is a book that is out. I've not read the book. I've just been doing research on it online and listened to some podcasts. But
what's the book called? Do you know?
I do.
You do? Okay, we'll get back to you on the book title.
The Good Life, How to Live It. And now I don't even know that I would recommend reading the book, because I haven't read it yet. But it's the book is written by these two professors from Harvard that are now the directors of that study. They're the fourth and fifth directors, and they wrote a book together about what they found. But so it's called The Good Life Now, How to Live It, Lessons from the World's Longest Study. But I haven't read the book, but I've just been doing research and kind of what the main points of what they're extracting from this study. And so one of the guys that they this is kind of an honorable mention in this study is Leo DeMarco.
Okay.
And apparently out of everyone has decided that he is the healthiest, most happy person in this study.
I wonder how old he is.
Yeah, I don't even know if he's still alive, but just sounds like, really remarkable man and very healthy. And so they kind of were getting to what is it about Leo DeMarco that made him, and they talked to a lot of the people that were closest to him, and everyone agreed that he had this really unique ability to be interested and attentive in his relationship. Wow. So he had really strong, it wasn't It wasn't so much of what he ate and how he exercised. It was very much tied to his relationships, that he had really strong relationships. People really felt connected to him. He felt really connected to people.
And what made him feel connected were those two
and
qualities.
those two qualities stood out, was that he was very interested and attentive in his relationships. Isn't that interesting?
Yes. I think we did a podcast on this at some point about curiosity as connection. That if you really want to connect with somebody, then you got to be curious about them. I mean, how many times have you had a conversation with someone and you asked all the questions and they answered all of your questions, but then they didn't return that and ask you anything about yourself, right?
Yeah.
Well, is there any connection there? No. But the people that you truly appreciate, those two qualities, and I think about applying that in marriage, attentiveness and what was the other one? Interest.
Being interested and attentive.
Curiosity. Like,
it goes a long way in relationships. It really does. Actually, we were with a couple last night.
Yeah, Jason and Shannon Raybon. And we've known these people for 20 years, and they were with us in our living room. And just last night, they left, and when they were done, I was talking with Tori, and I was like, "They're such amazing people because all they do is ask questions, and then they're answering questions, and then we ask them questions, and then they ask us questions, and then they're interested in what our kids are doing. We're interested in what their kids are doing, and they're attentive. Jason, he's an entrepreneur like me, and he's very attentive to stuff. Like whenever I'm, in the middle of dinner eating or whatever, he's like, "Okay, so what'd you think about that? Was that good? Okay, how about this? Hey, you need to try this. I think you would like this." Well, that's called attentiveness.
Yeah,
like he's paying attention.
Yeah,
and then the curiosity, the being. I can't believe I keep forgetting the word.
Attentive
and interested.
Attentive and interested. Yeah.
Yes, being interested in what we're doing. The number of folks that don't do that, it is alarming that there are that many grown adults who, one, aren't attentive. Maybe it's because of insecurity. Maybe it's because of a threat. Maybe it's because of their own issues. Could be selfishness or whatever. But then the whole interest piece, it's like, I'm here to answer all of your questions about what I'm doing. I have no intention on asking you anything,
But it's just, you don't feel nearly as connected to those people. You just never will. But think about the people that you feel most connected with. They show so much interest and they're attentive, and it's a two-way street. It's back and forth. I want to know about you. You want to know about me. There's curiosity. And that's, and that was, last night with Shannon and Jason. Both you and Jason have experienced some loss in the last several years.
Yeah.
You lost your mom, he lost his mom and his dad. And so that conversation came up, and it was like, you both were asking each other questions about that and what that has been like for you, and what that's been like for him. And there was just like this genuine interest and just an instant connection because of that.
And in marriage, what interest looks like, you think, well, I don't need to ask my spouse any questions because I already know everything about no. Well, listen, then move it into the realm of emotions.
Yeah.
How did you feel?
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I mean interrupt, but in the Connection Code book, that's one of the things that they talk a lot about is the question, how was that for you?
Yeah.
How was that for you? What did that feel like for you? How, whatever it is, like, how was that for you is a great question. With your spouse to constantly be asking, because you're interested on how all the things in life, all of the, there's so much that we just sometimes skirt over and we don't really get into.
Yeah.
That is just a simple, how was that for you?
Yeah. And the simple, like coming together at the end of the day after you're both done with work or whatever, it's like, okay, so how was your day? And actually genuinely wanting to hear. And then the spouse who's answering the question genuinely needs to open up and say, okay, so I did this today. Oh, this thing happened. Yeah, I didn't really like that, whatever. And you guys just open up. It's not, I'm so tired. My spouse just said, how was your day? And I need to say, oh, it's good. And then leaving it at that. Well, then that's failure of communication.
Yeah.
And so that's where the curiosity comes in terms of your relationship, is it's move not just into the transaction, like what did you do today, although that's important. Move beyond it. Well, how did you feel? Like Tori yesterday went with a couple of her girlfriends and they did some facials and they did a little bit of shopping at this little boutique place. And so I asked her, well, so what'd you get? Look at it. Let me see it, Yeah. And how was it? Was it fun? How did that feel when you got a facial? She's like, well, my face felt really greasy. And I'm like, oh, that's disgusting. But like that. And then secondly, it's the attentiveness. That attentive, the other day, and I don't always do this, but Tori is obviously, I always tell guys, your wife is your relationship coach. And wives, you need to pay attention that when your husband does something good, compliment him because that's coaching him. So the other day, it was yesterday. Tori was going to go do facials and all this kind of stuff, but Lundy, our youngest daughter, it wasn't settled like in terms of who she was going to be with, what she was going to be doing. So I simply had an idea. I was like, I'll pick Lundy up, and then I'll bring her and a friend back to the house or whatever. And so I texted Tori. I said, hey, I'm going to do this. And then she texted back, it's okay. Lundy's going to stay with her friend. It's already worked out. And then about an hour later, she texted and said, that was really sweet of you to think of settling Lundy like that, because that would relax me. So I appreciate you doing that. Well, what she did was she coached me. It was a subconscious thing that I did, and I don't always do that. And I think Tori's like, well, I really liked what you just did. That was attentive to my needs because you knew I wouldn't relax without Lundy being situated. So you thinking about Lundy in that moment actually was a good thing. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, well, how else can I be attentive to getting Lundy taken care of, So I think the attentiveness and that interest, I think those are two of the key things that they took away from this study in terms of building a strong relationship. Yeah. That really helps people and keeps you healthy.
Yeah, that's so true. And I don't know if you remember, but about a week ago, I had mentioned to you that I kind of could use some help with if we're doing something, I don't want to be the only one thinking about Lundy. So And so I had kind of brought it up, and so that might've been in your subconscious, you didn't remember, but that I was like, if we're going to be, if we have plans, I need you to be aware that we still have a 13-year-old daughter. Like I can't be the only one thinking about where she's going to be, how, because our lives are getting a little bit more free because we have older kids, but we still have Lundy. That
I'm like, we got a 13-year-old. So we're free.
There was like 4 or 5 days in a row of us having lots of plans. Yeah. And I was like kind of stressing. I'm like, no, I don't want to have to find another thing for Lundy to do. Like I think that we need to, kind of hone in. Yeah. Anyways, I said that. And then the next week, you took initiative.
I didn't put those two things together. Maybe. Thanks for coaching me.
But that's just the importance of communication. Like, sometimes I'll just forget to even have that conversation with you. And then I have these expectations and these frustrations when it could easily just talk about it and talk it through. And then then also following up with, thank you so much for doing that. That was really, really helpful that you were actually helping me think through a plan for Lundy so that I could do this.
And 9 out of 10 times, though, whoever's listening to this, all of you guys out there, guys, girls, 9 out of 10 times, the woman is more relationally intelligent than the man. Therefore, the woman needs to be actively coaching the man in ways like what Tori just said. Like, okay, bring it up. Hey, our 13-year-old daughter, she's not ready to actually be on her own yet. So we can't make all these plans and just leave her out of it, right? That was how Tori coached me. It wasn't like, okay, so, step 1 is this, step 2 is that. It's not like you're trying to teach. And then the guy, be open to your wife's coaching. So wives out there, be assertive in coaching your husband. Husbands, be open to your wives coaching you. And I promise you, it will help you.
Yeah. So with this study, what they found is that they're in one of the things, so that as they're watching and observing all of these people and how the healthiest, whoa, I got a lisp.
It was good. I like
the healthiest. The healthiest ones were those in strong relationships. Yeah. They began to look at the science behind that. Yeah. And they found that there truly is an inflammatory response and an immune response to relationships. Wow. And how, when there's loneliness and social isolation, it produces higher levels of cortisol, chronic inflammation, which breaks down multiple body systems, which affects the cardiovascular or causes cardiovascular disease and arthritis and autoimmune and all these things. They can actually see that it's tied, just like you would see this response with smokers and obesity. You're seeing it with people who are just socially isolated or lonely.
Wow.
And so,
That's crazy.
yeah. And so there's because of this study, there's so many more studies that are kind of building on it.
Wow.
And it's really become a thing. Like, we really need to recognize how much relationships play into our health. And that shouldn't be surprising to us at all as believers, as Christians, right? Because we were made for relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And if our relationships aren't strong, then everything else is going to break down.
Yeah.
And so this just is one of those studies that is proving that to be true, that there is really something behind relationships, and we really need to value. I mean, we value health as a culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what were the top things that, like, I think they did a study of the top things that people value. And I think at the top was your health, right? Because you want to live long and you want to feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now we're recognizing that at the top tier of your health comes relationships, even over what you eat and how you take care of your body in a physical way.
Wow. That's
and
just
so
strong.
I think it's just so important. And for us to really take that to heart, to really take that in. Like, I know for you and I, as we've begun to value our relationship more and more, and to value it in such a way that we actually think about it in the same terms that we think about what we put into our body
Mm-hmm.
and our workout routine. But we now kind of look at our relationship as something of really great value.
Yeah.
And that allows us to make decisions like going for a walk is not a waste of time together. Going to the grocery store together, it's like you start to think, oh my goodness, this is really healthy for me. This is really good to me, to connect with the people that I love most.
Yeah.
I think that so many times, I know at the beginning of our relationship, sometimes those kind of things could almost feel like a waste of time.
Yeah.
But like when you start to think,
not.
it's not. And when you start to think of it, like, this is really good. This is healthy for me. It really does change the way that you do life, because because of the value you place on it.
Yeah. I love that, man. So this is strong. I'm really glad you came up with that, and you discovered that study, because that's the Harvard study of adult development, 85-year-old study.
Yep.
The one thing that's the healthiest for you is be good at relationships.
Yeah.
And those two little qualities.
And I'm going to end it with this, because I thought
let me say these two qualities real quick.
Oh, sorry.
Otherwise I'll forget them. Attentiveness and interest.
Yes.
Those two things. Okay. Now
Healthiest for relationship. One of the studies that they did is they asked all the female, they always ask them, like, at the end of their life, what your biggest regret is. And for females, the greatest, when they kind of compile them together, for females, the number one thing was they wish they hadn't spent so much time worrying about what people think, which is interesting that it's different for the male. The males was more that they wish that they had spent more time with the people that they loved. And so that's just something I thought that was interesting. And I think for women, that is more of an issue of worrying about what people think.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
So that was
That's
interesting.
Good. I love that. Well, that's awesome. Do you have a recipe for us? Are we doing a recipe today?
Yeah. You know what? I'm not going to do a recipe today just because I didn't have time.
Okay. I get it.
One together, but yeah, we're going to be working on one this week for sure.
Mulligan.
Actually, me and Allie have a good idea of, and we'll try it. We'll let you know what we think, and maybe share that one next week.
Oh, this is good. Thank you. I didn't know any of this stuff that Tori was going to share. So thanks for teaching me on the Science of Relationship tour.
I thought this one was pretty fascinating.
Oh, that is fascinating. Keep researching that stuff, because to me, this is the most interesting stuff of marriage. So when Tori and I, we obviously don't position ourselves as experts in marriage at all. We've just made a lot of mistakes and don't want you to make the same ones. But we like to study stuff that helps people get along better. And so when we discover something good, we'll bring it to you. It's as easy as that.
All right. See you guys next week.
See ya.